Papa Heron. Papa Heron stood with his feet in the river, looking deeply into the water. He often looked at his own reflection in the still flow of the wide river. But these days he saw that his eyes were no longer bright like they used to be. His feathers didn't shine in the reflected sunshine like they used to do. Over the seasons, he had come to peer deeper and deeper into the water, bending his long neck low over the surface. He'd learned to see things differently and with more understanding than when he was younger. But what good is being able to see below the surface, he thought sadly, when now he stood all alone. All the young herons these days hadn't the patience to stand for hours, waiting for the juiciest of fishes to come close enough to catch. Now young herons wanted to catch their own dinners quickly. They'd gone off to where the humans lived, and where they kept ponds full of bright and eye-catching orange carp, easy to catch and no standing and waiting in the river. Papa Heron thought deeply and sadly about how cross and bad-tempered he'd become with the young herons. He simply didn't understand them or their thinking, and had driven them away with his gruffness. Papa Heron wanted to share with his children the joy he got by simply standing and watching, sometimes balancing on one leg, seeing the beauty of the sparkling light on the surface of the water, and taking great pride in being able to catch his dinner and feed his family. But the young herons didn't need him to catch and share the fish he caught, for they could catch their own fish, and much quicker and easier than by standing and watching in the older way of doing things. Now it was easy. What did the young herons didn't realise was that the humans had a plan of their own in mind. They didn't like to see their fish ponds emptied of the fish that they had bought, fed, carefully nurtured and grown, and certainly not to share these special fish with young herons. So they started to put nets over their ponds, or worse, to put strange heron-like creatures at the edges to frighten the young herons. These unnatural creatures could stand completely still for much longer than even Papa Heron could stand. They were very scary, standing motionless like soldiers guarding the ponds. So the young herons became hungrier and hungrier, and their feathers too began to lose their soft shiny look, just like Papa Heron's. So the world wasn't right and bright for the herons. Papa Heron was sad and lonely, and the young herons were hungry and becoming thin and unwell. And so it would have stayed had it not been for Mother Heron, who had watched all this from a distance. She saw that Papa Heron was lonely and sad because he was grumpy and bad-tempered and hadn't tried to understand the young herons. And he had driven the young herons away, even though she also saw that Papa Heron had learned many wise things and was skilled at bringing home the juiciest of fishes to eat. She also saw that the young herons just wanted an easy life and to catch their dinners quickly and without watching and waiting. They didn't want to look deeply into the wide river or to see their own reflections in the water. Now, Mother Heron was very good at making things better and keeping the peace when members of her family got upset with each other. Through experience, she knew how to keep the nest home safe and peaceful, and had the sense to save the situation. And this is what she did. When Papa Heron came slowly flying home as the sun was setting, she sat next to him on their favourite roosting branch, high up in the Scots pine tree, and she reminded him of how they had worked so hard tending their eggs and then feeding the young and often greedy herons in the nest that they had built together. She told him how grateful she was for how he provided for the juiciest of fishes, which he brought home due to his skills and patience as a fine fisher heron. Papa Heron started to feel good about himself once again, and to realise what a good provider of the best fish he had been, and still was. Because of Papa Heron's now brighter mood, Mother Heron could ask him to help the younger herons once again. She told him that he was needed now more than ever, and that all the time he had spent learning wisdom at the Wise River could help save their young family. The following morning, as the sun rose in the sky, she arranged for the family to fly down to the river together. She asked Papa Heron to sit and watch as the young herons played, gliding in and out of the trees next to the river. Just watching them and seeing them, how full of life they were, brought happiness to Papa Heron. The time went past, and the morning turned into the afternoon, and the young herons were now exhausted and very, very hungry. Mother Heron suggested that as a family they had a game to see who could catch the first and juiciest fish for all of them to share and eat. The young herons thought this was a good idea and would be fun. But how to do this they just didn't know. Papa Heron gently flew into the river and started watching, and the young herons saw this as part of the game, and also came and stood in the river. Now Papa Heron could see deep down just where the juicy fish were, but instead of snapping them up, he simply stood still and allowed the young herons to start to peer deeply into the Wise River to see what he was seeing. Soon the young herons started to see deep into the depths and notice where the juicy fish were hiding. It didn't take them long to start catching fish. Papa Heron showed he was so pleased and proud of the young herons. They started to feel good about themselves and very grown up. The lesson had been learned. Papa Heron had learned to be more patient and to praise his young herons. The young herons had learned the joy of being able to bring home fish to share and to treat the waiting and the watching as part of the game. And so the wise and ancient river continued to flow along, having seen all this many times before, caring for all the fish, insects, birds, animals and humans who lived there by her sparkling water.